Welcome to Democratic Television, a program of the Santa Clara County Democratic Party that brings insights, perspectives, and attitudes of our always thoughtful Democratic guests. Today we're joined by Supervisor Dave Cortese, who is running to be the next mayor of San Jose. Dave, thanks for being on Democratic Television.
Glad to be here, Steve. Looking forward to the conversation.
Well, good. Looking forward to the race, too. It's got a number of folks in it. It generates a lot of interest. Before we start talking about that, let's get a little bit of background in on you. One of the reasons why I think you're comfortable running for mayor is, you were on the city council, but more importantly, you grew up here. You have real roots in the Santa Clara Valley.
Yeah, I did. I grew up in the East Valley. I was actually born at the Fort Ord Army Hospital, and my dad, who was he was commissioned there at the end of the Korean War. He was a first lieutenant, a training officer, and shortly after I was born, he moved the family, which was my mother and my father and myself, out to Evergreen. So that's all I can remember. Of course, I was an infant when I got there, but
yeah,
there were 9 homes in the entire area, and it was all orchards, and that's what we did. We were orchard farmers back in those days, and got involved with a couple other types of farming. I was running a hay and grain operation when I was 14 years old. So
I guess child labor laws weren't so important back then.
Yeah, I do believe that to this day, because of the way farming grew up in this country with family operations, kids are exempt from those child labor laws in family operations. At least that's what they used to tell me.
Well, that's a good point, and probably an important point. You're the oldest of Dominic and Suzanne's kids, right? So you probably set the tone. We're going to be a good working family and hopefully be prosperous.
Yeah, and that came down from my paternal grandfather, who was an immigrant here. Typical immigrant story in California. He came here by himself from Europe, penniless, and that carries on, that mentality and that work ethic, I think, in a lot of families carries on for a generation or two, because the habits and the work ethic really plays out for a couple generations, and that's how it was. That's how I grew up, and of course it was a family farming business and operation, and then eventually I got involved and interested in politics myself as a kid. But my father ran for the County Board of Supervisors and was the first Democrat elected back in 1968 to a board that had been Republican for years and years and years. And
so Dominic broke the mold.
He broke the mold, and then we got Rod Diridon and Dan McCorkadale shortly after that, and the Democrats took over the majority of the board, thank goodness, and things have been wonderful ever since.
Well, more or less, yes. But in terms of that, so locally, you went to local schools, graduated. Probably your summer jobs were working on the farms, working on the ranch, taking care of.
I imagine there's a few viewers who cut apricots or picked prunes out there. That's how we grew up. That's how I grew up. And I was the oldest of 5 children that were born 6 years apart. And that wasn't uncommon either, to have large families out in these farming families, and ended up going to Bellarmine. I went to a couple different elementary schools, including the old Evergreen School. But I ended up at Bellarmine. My 8th grade principal encouraged me to apply there, and I did, and got accepted somehow, and ended up at Bellarmine, which was a real good experience. Of course, academically, the school is famous for getting kids into 4-year universities, and I went on to Santa Clara for a couple of years, and then got my bachelor's degree from UC Davis. Got my law degree while I was working a few years later, raising my family. I was on the school board at the time, the Eastside High School board. I was right around 30 years old, and I was going to law school at night, and I finished in 4 years.
Wow.
Got my degree, passed the bar a week after my second daughter was born. And that's one of the reasons why they call my wife Patty the secret weapon. No matter what has happened politically or family-wise, she's the real trooper.
Well, I think you all are, but I hear what you're saying about the family ethic and the work ethic. Multitasking is second nature.
Yeah, it is. I I kind of grew up with that old school instruction and mentoring that you never want to be idle. You know, if you have a break, pick up a book and read it. Do something. And I still do that to this day. You know, we were doing some campaign work this morning, and there was a little break, and somebody handed me a list and said, "While you're sitting here, you know, take a look at this list and check a few names off of it." And you know, no complaint, because it's second nature. That's just kind of the way I grew up.
That's what you do. So what made you want to run for the school board? Eastside is a huge school district, huge budget, huge responsibilities.
Well, you know, like a lot of young Democrats, I was involved in various activities, nonprofit groups, activist groups in the community, and I got the idea at some point, you know, all this time I'm putting into community activism, what if I focus that a little bit more on a single activity, like trying to improve education? And once I decided that was my next mission, you know, I ran for school board. I was elected in 1992. Eastside Union is the largest high school district in Northern California.
Yeah.
And immediately I was caught up in dealing with challenges there, and we had a lot of fun, a lot of challenges, but a lot of innovative programs came out of the next 8 years, and I was proud to be a part of that.
What were some of the things that you had to learn? I mean, again, you know, being a business person, you dealt with budgets. School district is that, you know, amped up quite a bit.
Yeah, well, you know, in between those agricultural years and about the time I joined the school board, I had worked in the banking business for about 6 years, and then I went back to work for my family, to your point, running the business side of the operation. I did that for 15 years. And it's true, and one of the things that is escapes people sometimes, I think, is the fact that balancing budgets in business and balancing budgets in the public sector really are very similar activities. And of course, I've done that for 21 years now as an elected official. If you fast forward all the way up to these last 5 years where I've been a county supervisor. But it does, you know, we got there, I got to the school board and immediately found out they had an $11 million deficit, and the entire budget was only $100 million.
Wow.
So we had to figure that out. And about 85–90% of a school district's budget, of course, is in the classroom. It's teachers, and you don't really have easy places to cut. So it was interesting facing those challenges. We faced them, we balanced those budgets. You know, we worked very collaboratively with the teachers' unions and the other unions at the time because we knew we needed to get together with them and ask for their help in creating a sustainable plan to get through the next few years. You know, we didn't want to be litigating or fighting or, you know, sort of at each other's throats over these kind of issues.
Right.
You know, and we really had that mantra, we're all in it for the kids, let's just stick with that attitude.
So what was it like working with other school board members? People come, I don't want to say with their own agenda because that sounds pejorative, but they have a sense of, I have a mission and I need to get 4 other people to agree with me.
Well, that was another thing that I found out in terms of my abilities as a politician. I mean, you have to be a good politician to get a majority of the votes on any board or in any legislative body, and you find out about yourself. That's why I encourage people who come to me and say, you know, I think I want to run for office. A lot of times they want to start at city council or county supervisor or even the legislature, and I really encourage them to start with a school board, not because it's easy, but because you find out a lot about yourself and your ability to work with other people and your ability to collaborate with others in terms of getting majority votes. But of course, not everyone I worked with was easy to work with, and you need to figure out right away, you know, who your allies are, of course, who you can depend on, who you can persuade. Sometimes someone isn't a natural ally, but they'll listen to you. They're open to persuasion, and then you learn that you need to be that way yourself, obviously. And you know, now, you know, over 20 years later, I think it's really served me on a 5-member board of supervisors. I have some natural allies there. We can usually get 3 votes, but you need to understand that you need to be persuasive and you need to work with those people for the greater good to make sure that you don't take anything for granted, and don't take other people for granted when you're serving with them.
You mentioned people coming up and talking to you. What's your philosophy about people talking to you? When you're an elected official, I think everybody wants to share their opinions. to be blunt, are you accessible? Can people find you?
Yeah, I am, and I've always been that way. I haven't changed my cell phone number in years, and if people want to reach me right now, they can call to a number that will forward directly to me, which is 408-283-9140. If you ring that number, it's going to come to my phone. And we do that not just during the campaign, but I do that as an elected official. When I was running for city council in the year 2000, and I won that race, but when I was running and meeting with community groups, talking to people in high school gymnasiums and so on, one of the pledges I started to make was I told people after I'm elected, I'm going to stay connected with each one of you. I'm going to be accessible to each one of you. And one day a guy raised his hand and he said, I don't believe you. He said, there's 90,000 people in this district. Mm-hmm. And he said, how are you going to do that? And I told him, look, when we're running for office, we don't seem to have any problem at all reaching all the voters and all the people in the district. And, if we can do it when you're running for office, you should be able to do it after you're elected. That's my philosophy. So that's what we've done. That's what we've tried to do.
So you went from the school board, the East Side School Board, and thought, yeah, I'm going to try this city council stuff. Just thought, the problems, I'm sure there's similarities, but they're different. Much different.
And especially on the San Jose City Council, including the mayor's vote, there's 11 members. That means there's 11 votes. So what we were talking about a few minutes ago, it becomes a lot more complicated. Yeah. It's not about getting 3 votes out of 5. All of a sudden, it's about getting 6 votes, at minimum out of 11. And people have even more severely different agendas at times. And you not only have to be ready to move your own ideas, but you have to be very, very ready to react to the ideas of others, which of course aren't always ideas of shared values. And I found it to be challenging, but again, rewarding and productive overall. It was a good experience. But the person who really has, sort of the keys to the store when it comes to the city council and running the city of San Jose is the mayor, because there's extra duties, extra responsibilities there that really help define and shape any given day, week, or year in the city of San Jose. So,
right.
Looking forward to try to go back there and put my own style on that office.
Great. We're going to take a little break. We'll come back in a minute and talk about what it means to bring San Jose together.
Hello, I'm Larry Stone, the Santa Clara County Assessor. Politics, particularly Democratic Party politics, has always been important to me. The office of County Assessor is technically a non-partisan office, but I've always been proud to call myself a Democrat and be involved intimately with the Democratic Party. When I was growing up, my parents taught me to be involved in giving something back to your community, and I've been able to do that through my involvement in the Democratic Party. As assessor, I look at myself as a fiduciary for schools, local government, cities, redevelopment agencies, and I think it's important to let people know that I'm an active Democrat. So if you're interested, please give us a call at 408-445-9500. And thank you very much for watching DTV.
Welcome back to Democratic Television, and our guest, San Jose mayoral, I'm not used to saying that, Dave, mayoral candidate, Dave Cortese. So the Board of Supervisors is something you've been on for about 5 years now. You do deal with an enormous budget and a range of responsibilities that I think most people aren't aware of.
Yeah, it's a $4.2 billion budget. There's 15,000 employees. There's actually another 17,000 employees that do in-home care services for the elderly and disabled. That's part of a state pass-through program. But the 15,000 primary employees is a big number. That most of the time makes Santa Clara County the largest employer in the county, even larger than Cisco, for example. So, but the county has a full range of service delivery, of local government service delivery. We have a sheriff's department, with deputies, of course, who have squad cars, and most people see them around all over the place. They're patrolling not only neighborhoods but entire cities in some parts of the county. We have a parks department. In fact, we have one of the biggest parks programs in the county, which impacts in a good way San Jose and all the surrounding cities. We run the Valley Medical Center and all the clinics. That alone is a $2 billion operation with over 7,000 employees. So if you think about it in perspective, many people who are listeners probably are familiar with city government. A city like San Jose is actually smaller than just the county hospital system. So it gives you some perspective on how big and important the county is. But juvenile justice, criminal justice, all of those systems, the court systems, everything you see out there that is in that realm is also county. And then, of course, the thing that most people associate the county with, social services. If somebody needs general assistance or they need food from the food bank, oftentimes they come through county social services to get those kind of needs met.
Yeah. Well, important work, but here you are running for mayor. Now, you served on the city council for 8 years, went away and came back, hoping to come back. What are you seeing as you get out and talk about city issues again?
Well, I've only been gone from city government for 5 years. That's the time I've been on the Board of Supervisors, and I love it where I am. I love the kind of work that we do, and I work with great people. It's just a wonderful Board of Supervisors right now. But I look over at the city, and in the 5 years I left, some serious things have happened. There were 1,350 police officers when I left. There are only 906 or so today that can wear a badge and a gun, and that's not enough. We were once the safest big city in America, and that was certainly the case when I was on the city council. Now we have one of the fastest growing crime rates in America, and we just found that FBI statistics tell us there were more auto thefts in the city of San Jose during 2013 than in all 5 boroughs of New York City. And of course, New York has a 5-to-1 population advantage on us. So this is a catastrophic problem. It's something that needs to be dealt with. And police officers have been leaving at a rate of about 70 a year just by resignation. Those are just the ones that quit, not retire. So we've got to put an end to that, and it's going to take trust restored. It's going to take people getting back to the table and figuring out, how to make San Jose a city of choice for police officers and other professionals again, because right now that's not the way they're looking at it.
Yeah. So you are out there walking precincts, you're knocking on people's doors. I think it's no secret that, as you are stating, crime is sort of issue number one for people. What else are people talking about? What else do you hear that people tell you that you have to fix?
Well, of course, public safety, as you just alluded to, is such a huge issue that's the issue that's really kind of filling up the candidates' forums and the high school gymnasiums and so forth. And when you're knocking on doors and talking to people on the phone, that's the first thing they want to know. They want to know, what are you going to do to bring cops back to the city of San Jose? There are other issues like fire response times. San Jose has, fallen down severely over the last year and a half in terms of EMT, emergency service response times. They're supposed to get there in 8 minutes or less, 90% of the time. That's the standard nationwide. San Jose hasn't met that for about a year and a half. People want to be connected. When I was on the city council, we went out of our way to connect neighborhoods with City Hall so that people felt they can get their issues addressed and responded to directly and quickly. And a lot of that has degraded, and people tell you that when you talk to them. The city has not built parks for the last several years, presumably with a fear that there might not be enough money to operate them. But when you look at the situation, the city has about $80 million in its park fund right now. And people in the neighborhoods are getting tired of waiting for that little community park down the street to get built. And you hear a lot about that.
Yeah. One of the issues that I know has come up is what can the mayor do in terms of education? How can we help the schools be successful? How can we help teachers be successful? What is your vision given your 8 years on the school board?
Well, it's a great question, and the way you frame the question is really spot on, because what the city can do is support schools, augment schools and school districts. You can't tell them what to do. They have their own separate governance structure. And of course, they know what they're doing by and large. But things like after-school homework centers are hugely important. When I was on the city council for those 8 years, we developed over 200 after-school homework centers in the city. My district alone, my council district, had 20 active homework centers. And it doesn't take much money or resources to do that. There's so many community organizations that want to help out with that kind of work. School safety is a big issue as well. I mean, the schools can't really provide their own law enforcement and intervention work with young people who may be getting recruited by gangs or just having general issues. The schools really depend on the city of San Jose and even the county government to do that kind of work, which is why, as a county supervisor in 2011, I called for the rebuilding of an old program called School Link Services, which is up and running again now. And the idea is to focus city and county services in and around our schools to make them safer and to provide opportunity for kids that are having a little bit of a struggle.
Another issue that I've heard a lot about and read about is the whole question of homelessness and folks living in the creeks and highest populations of homeless in the area. What is the mayor of San Jose going to do when he gets elected?
Well, we're going to address that a lot more aggressively, the issue of homelessness a lot more aggressively than it's been done recently. And when I say aggressive, I'm not talking about police sweeps. One of the things I'm troubled by is the fact that even now San Jose is still doing 52 police sweeps a year. Patty, my wife Patty, and I, a couple weeks ago, spent about an hour and a half over in one of the encampments, the so-called jungle right off of Story Road, one of the largest encampments of its kind in the country.
Yeah.
And there you have Valley Medical Center doctors, clinicians, psychologists, psychiatrists, helping people to stabilize. But just about the time they start making some progress with them, getting them to take care of business, restoring their dignity, suddenly there's a police sweep ordered by the city of San Jose which just scatters everybody and takes all of their belongings. This isn't the way we should be trying to help people. And as mayor, what I want to do is take the veterans population that's homeless, which is 10 to 15%, amazingly, and get them enrolled in VA services and get them where they need to be. They'll get a roof over their head that way. Children, 25% of the homeless are now kids, they're children. And that really reflects the population of the city and the counties overall. But those children won't be denied services through state and county programs, but we need to enroll them. That should take 35% total off the population immediately. And then the chronically homeless, they need, again, to be stabilized. They need to be in one place long enough that we can work with them. That may be a month or two, transitional housing, so then we can, again, give them a leg up, get them back to work, and get them into some form of permanent housing.
Well, and housing certainly is another issue all its own, the cost of affordable housing. Where are the working class going to live? Do you have a solution there?
Well, we need production, first of all, first and foremost. I mean, the ultimate answer is that these areas that we have zoned and general planned over the years for higher density housing, especially along transit corridors, haven't been built out, and we need to get to the bottom of why that's happening. I think a lot of it is because San Jose's permitting process and planning process has been very, very slow, one of the slowest in the entire region. And builders and developers who are trying to stay in business themselves have the opportunity to go elsewhere to do their business. And we need to make sure that they're coming here because it creates jobs here, construction jobs here, other kinds of employment jobs for people that oversee housing, apartment managers and everything else. But of course, more than anything, it provides more housing stock so we don't have these situations like we have had recently with zero vacancy and people, young people who have jobs and want to work here, not being able to find a place to live that's affordable.
Right, and find themselves in the jungle.
They can find themselves in the jungle, and it's not uncommon that that's a reason for people being there. We have mobile home parks in this city that have been a source of affordable housing for years. Now, for the first time, you're seeing the city council talking about converting some of those mobile home parks into high density housing or new developments. Well, what happens to the people that are living there? What about their dignity? How would you like to go home to your mobile home that you've lived in for years at night and not know whether or not someone's going to pull the rug out from under you? This isn't the way we should do business in the city of San Jose. I stand for a city where people can feel secure in where they live, whether it's neighborhood safety issues, whether it's school safety issues, or whether it's just knowing that their home isn't going to be yanked out from under them because somebody wants to do a different kind of project there.
Well, Dave, bringing San Jose together, that sounds like a pretty apt motto for a guy running for mayor. If someone wants to get hold of you or learn more about your campaign or your positions on issues, is there a website they can go to?
Yeah, DaveCortese.com is the campaign website. And then you can email me directly, and it really will come to me, not the campaign manager, at dave@davecortese.com. Dave@davecortese.com. And the phone number again is 408-283-9140. That's me. So if you're watching Democratic TV, please call me directly if you've got an issue, a suggestion, or even if you have a concern about something I've said.
And we have about 20 seconds left. I know many people will be voting very soon. People don't wait till June to vote now.
Yeah, 80% of the people who are voting in the June 3rd primary these days, unlike when I first started in politics, they'll be voting by mail.
Okay.
So the election starts May 5th.
Okay.
Think of it that way.
Okay. Thanks very much for being on Democratic Television.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching DTV. Give us a call at 408-445-9500 or visit our website at sccdp.org and help make a difference. We'll see you on the campaign trail.